Hello, welcome to the Last Drop Africa podcast. My name is Bella Twine, sitting in for Alex, my co-host, and of course he says he misses you. But right now we're going to be diving into our topic of the year, which is your hand in combating climate change. What are you doing to make sure that we don't have the last drop of rain, the last drop of the earth, the last drop of, water? So if you're out there and you're doing something amazing, we are profiling people who are having solutions to different problems that are brought about by climate change. So in the building, we have a guest who will be introducing herself shortly and what she does. But most importantly, this episode and podcast is brought to you by Africa No Filter and the MasterCard Foundation. So we'll dive right in and I will introduce our guest, who is Brenda. Brenda, tell us about yourself and what you do really.
Hi everyone, my name is Brenda Mpiirwa, Ssali. I am an interior designer and I'm a business owner, so I own an interior design company. I'm an entrepreneur because I'm doing so many other things, mostly in the construction industry and real estate. I was previously a banker and I don't feel like throwing that title away ever, because I spent a decade banking and I loved it until I didn't. And yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you for coming. Could you tell us more about your company? What's the name of your company and what do you do? And probably a bit of background of how you started, since you said you were a banker before.
Okay, so I'm a business owner or co-founder of Kwanzi Accents in Interior Design. We do interior design primarily, and that entails design consultancy. So we do things like space planning, we do things like doing for you specifications. Are you looking for 3D visuals? We are your people. We also do project management. So we are basically working with homeowners, business owners, offices that need to change up their spaces. We also work with architects and developers. Most times people want to do stuff with their spaces, but they don't know what to do with them. So we do it from the soft angles of interior design to the actual fit out of interior design. And we try to cover as a diverse number of type of properties, from homes to offices to commercial properties to apartment buildings. Yeah, the whole enchilada. So
okay, so just a bit of background. How do you get into creating Kwanzi from banking?
First of all, from when I started school, as I exited school, my vision was not so much the job I was going to do, it was where can I land and make money, right? So banking was my first place. Be near the money, make the money, right? Makes sense. So when I left school, I applied to banks. I was lucky to get into banking. I did 10 years in banking. As you can tell, I'm not that young. So after the 10 years, I started to get bored. I needed a new challenge. And I realized that I was doing banking because of the money. So I started to sort of search and say, what do I want to do? What do I want to do every day when I wake up and feel happy and feel free? And one of the things that I had always had an eye for but never really focused on was interior design. So I decided to pursue a certification in interior design, mostly for the fun, to check out what was there. And then as I did that certification, I realized I could commercialize it. It was a full industry elsewhere, maybe not in Uganda. So I realized it was something I could make business out of. So then I started to have a conversation with one of my partner. And I said to her, you know what, I think we can make money from this thing. We both love it. What do you think? So she started to do school as well. And so by the time she not finished school really, but because she was still pursuing it, at some point we're like, you know what, let's register. This was 2018. Let's register and start working. And then we got there. Already started getting residential properties. We did our first project. It was a bit hectic. And we realized, what if you had 3 or 4 of these? You don't have to go to the bank every day and work. Because she was also doing a full-time 9-to-5 job. So that's how we decided to start Kwanzi. And we formed the company. She's based mostly in Rwanda. and I'm based here. So most of the work I do is here, and she does the one in Rwanda. But we share like the brand name and social media. Yes.
That's very interesting and diverse. So someone who is listening to this climate change podcast would wonder, now how does interior design and climate change connect?
So first of all, interior design, if you do your research, you'll find most people think interior design is just placing deco here or just a bit of paint here and there, and therefore they think that our contribution to climate change is very small. But when you think interior design, it's a part of construction. So what interior design is about starts from as far as what is the floor finish. What type of tiling are you going to put? What type of wall finish are you going to have? Whether it's paint or wallpaper, it's what type of windows are you having? Are they going to be wood? Are they going to be metal? Are they going to be aluminium? Then it's things like how do you plan the space, decides how much energy is in that space. So I would like to say that as long as you think interior design, you're thinking at least we contribute 40% to climate change. And it comes in what we use, in how we use the space, in how we, the materials themselves, the finishes, and how we even, how can I explain it? Just how we finish and the aesthetic, whether it's you're finishing it in what colors, whether with wallpaper, or are you putting plants or not plants, or are you doing a minimalistic approach or having a lot of things in the room. All that indirectly ends up affecting climate change. And for us, the way we look at it as interior design, it's our contribution to the carbon emissions. So when you're thinking carbon emissions, you think energy. So half the time you're putting up a space, it is what energy is in the space. And I'm talking from the lighting of the bulb to maybe the water you're using. What type of tap are you using? Is it a tap that is going to be efficient in using water, or is that tap that when you turn it on, it just lets hot water and energy and so much water coming out? That contributes. And then you think about things like, are you doing a room with full 4 walls and small windows? That contributes to how dark a room is, how much light you're going to put in that room. So all that comes down to the energy. So when we are thinking interior design, we think, and climate change, we think the energy that we are using when we are finishing a property. It could even be in the type of wall finish that you have. When you think, like ancient times, they used to use clay to finish walls. Clay has a way it keeps a space cool. So if you use clay, you're not necessarily thinking AC. So you don't have to think about that energy. You have conserved energy just by using a clay wall.
But I would wonder then, if this is what you're doing in Uganda, how is that market for you? How have you found that market? And is it something that is viable for any other person who would be wanting to join the industry and also contribute to solving, the problem of, these things that you've talked about, energy within interior design, and also contribute to combating climate change?
Other reasons that I joined interior design was because there was a gap in the industry. Not many people were doing interior design, and people somehow thought I build a house and I finish it myself, and then they don't like what they see, yet they spend so much time and money. So one is that I would tell someone who wants to join the industry that there's space in the industry for more players. They are needed. I can't do all the work. Even the interior designers that are there can't finish the work. So there's definitely space. But also it's that we still have a long way to go with educating our supposed to be clients, our prospective clients. Most of the Ugandans we are dealing with are thinking just put up the house the way we've always known it, and they're thinking interior designers are just there to do sort of the chairs and the tables and all that. And yet we are trying to get the industry clients to understand that there's a lot more to interior design, and you don't have to do what we've always done because it's not conserving the energy. So half the time I'm having discussions with my clients, it's what materials do you want to use? How much time are you spending in that space? Then I'm trying to lead them to understand that you don't have to necessarily use brick. You don't have to necessarily use so many things in a room. You can be minimalistic but still functional in your space. So one, we still have a lot of space for players who want to get in. They don't have to come in as interior designers, but they could even come in as educators, because one of the burdens and uphill tasks we have as interior designers right now is we have to educate our clients for them to turn into the right clients, who in this case are clients who understand it's good to conserve energy. It saves you. Instead of using electricity, use solar. Instead of using lights that have to stay on the whole time, have you thought, let me go smart and use motion sensors, for example, so that if I'm not in the room, the light goes off automatically. Now, people don't think like that. And when you're telling them that, they're thinking, oh, maybe it's too expensive, because that's the initial cost, but in the long run, it's very cheap. Yes, it saves the energy, saves your money. So we also need people to join the industry from that perspective, education, even content creators. I find that right now, as an interior designer, I still have the burden to sort of create content to bring the clients to a place where I want them to be. It's not my strength, but I must sort of formulate and forge the type of clientele that we want to have, which is the clientele of they understand about carbon emissions, energy conservation, and generally climate change.
So one of the things that you've mentioned as your problem within the industry is people look at you as the end goal to constructing, and let them just come and put things there, instead of thinking of you initially, even before they start their projects, right? While you pursue your dream of interior designing, what vision do you have for the environment, but also in terms of Uganda and where we're heading in that direction?
When you talk about vision, one of the things that I got into the industry with the thought of was sustainability. And initially you're thinking, a lot of my influences are coming from TV, from traveling. And so when you have seen what they're doing, probably like in Asia or maybe even Europe, you're thinking we need to transfer the same things home, right? That's where usually I come from. And so a lot of the designs and interactions I've had with designs outside Uganda have been about sustainability. And so even in my banking life, one of the things that I learned was efficiency and sustainability. It's the one thing I credit my former employer, because everything you think must be sustainable. You want to put up a house and think, how am I being able to maintain it? Can I still, because we have maintenance periods with houses and homes. They'll tell you a hotel every 7 years has to be maintained. They'll tell you maybe a home every 5 years, you need to touch up the paint, because you're living and breathing in that space. So it's getting ruined. There's these repairs that are happening all the time. So one of the things that could save people money is sustainability, building in a sustainable manner. So when you're building, you're thinking, what materials am I using? And what if I need to alter a space, for example? Do I have to put up all the walls in the house? Maybe not. You could even use separation. There's something we call illusion of space. So you can use different things to separate a space without erecting a brick wall, for example. Exactly. And now in this day and age, a lot of the things that are happening is, go to like Kololo, a lot of the homes have turned into offices. But guess what? Most of the people who are calling us to, hey, come and help me with my offices, we are breaking and breaking and breaking. And whilst I like renovation projects, it's that what resources were put in this. There are bricks, there's cement, there's a lot we are breaking. And then guess what? There are people who lack in this world. You're thinking somebody else could have used this. So the way I look at interior design, and one of the things I would like to achieve is sustainability. Sustainability, maintenance, but also be able to educate people so that they are not 100% waiting for Brenda to come and tell them, this is what you should do with the space. We need to have as much information out there so that when people are making decisions, if you can't afford an interior designer, it's okay. Just have the information and work with that. It is, what am I using to finish my home? Do I have to use kajansi, which is what we call clay tiles for the roof? And then you're thinking, okay, if you're saying maybe this is going to be my only an urban home, do you have to make it that big? No. Maybe you're thinking, I will retire and go up country. If you're going to be in this space for the next 20 years, are you designing it in a way that it's just for 20 years? Because remember, I'm always telling my clients, please don't build obscene houses. You have kids. They say, oh, I have 8 kids or maybe 5, and I need all these bedrooms. And kids mostly are in school. Then after 21 years, they're out of the house. So I'm like, you have to be futuristic in your thinking and in your planning. That's where, for me, the sustainability, maintenance comes from. And that's something I'm really trying to pass on to people as much as possible. So in summary, my vision is more about sustainability, but also education. Educate people so that you empower them to be able to do what is sustainable. Because I know I'll not be able to reach all the houses in this country. I know that when people come to Uganda, some of the commentary they'll make is, the architecture and homes or buildings in Uganda are not well done. Guess what? I can't touch all of them, but can people be able to see that and be able to do it by themselves from the onset?
One of the things that I've heard from you are limiting space and being creative and also being futuristic, which most people don't want to do. They don't want to plan. So if you ask someone, what are you going to do for the next 5 years? They would not exactly put it into context, right? I think also that makes me want to see your home because it must be very organized and well put. But just a reminder, this podcast is brought to you by Africa No Filter alongside MasterCard Foundation, and this is the Last Drop Africa, where we are fronting solutions to different climate change problems, and we are also encouraging people to put themselves out there and also contribute to combating climate change in any way that they can. And right now we have Brenda from Kwanzi Accents, and she's telling us more about interior designing and climate change. So one of the questions that I have, while you envision and continue to grow this business, there's probably other players, I would believe. What other players in the Ugandan scene do you think are doing a good job, are trying to do their best in interior designing, but also putting an element of, sustainability and recycling?
We have players in the industry. Much as I said, we are not that many. They've come up a number of people who are interested in the whole, interior design space, or even construction, let's put it that way. Because when you talk about interior design, there are many architects who specialize in interior design. But also one of the things maybe I need to mention is we've come up with an association with a few of the other players in the industry, and it's Women in Design. We've started with women because we are trying to see, first of all, also how to strengthen women, empower them, correct, and then see how we can change, together we can change the industry. So we have women architects in there who are specifically and specializing in interior design. We have people who are doing interior decor specifically, and then we have people who are just enthusiasts and just participating and wanting to know what happens there. So we do have that association, and we are trying to create common goals around it. But mainly to answer your question, some of the people who I know are truly contributing are some of the people who are in those groups that have those women in design. They're architects who, just to shout out to Makao Kwetu, she is Dativa is the lady behind it, and one of the things she's doing is recycling using containers to put up Airbnbs, and people who are building homes, even her office is made from a container. So those are some of the people who are contributing. Then there are people who are saying, how can we use a different style of building? And so there are people whose style is, everything I'm going to use is going to be locally produced. And so you'll find they're using local manufacturers, but also using local material. Now that also helps us with the carbon emission thing I was telling you about. So those are some of the architects. Then we have interior decorators, people who are doing the DIY, who are recycling old stuff, or they repurpose. Instead of wasting stuff away, they bring it and say, how do I make it deco? So they will respray maybe jerry cans, or they will respray containers. Instead of them being thrown away, you make them deco. So those are some of the people who are doing that. And then there are people who are going back to that thing I was telling you of ancient way of building, where you say, let's use clay. I don't know if you have been to the Entebbe Forest Lodge in Entebbe. It's actually Garuga. You should look it up. Exactly. If you go to that place, a lot of the things they've used there are locally done. From the wood, then when you go to the bathrooms, they've used stucco painting, which is also a thing. You need to look for non-chemical paints, things like that. Those also contribute to reducing carbon emissions. Then you go to the walls they've used, it's things like clay, and then you see the things they've used for the roofing, and then they've tried not to even tamper with the forest around those cabins. So those are people who are now contributing to that kind of reducing the carbon emissions within the construction industry. So I feel like we've taken some good steps, but like we have to make it a thing. Whoever is doing it should be recognized, should be given points, because I know there are people who are given points for reducing carbon emissions. So if you're the person on the project, maybe be given points for that or rewards, because there are people who are really trying. And I feel like people who are doing lodges are really pushing that agenda, and not only because we feel like it's a tourist liking, but it's also helping Uganda as a nation.
I saw a meme today that was saying that there's no one as determined as a woman who is trying to move a piece of furniture in her house or in her home. They will shift everything and anything. And the fact that you're saying that, you're empowering women, I feel like they're built for such spaces because they have that mind that just looks at things creatively and, is set to change the environment wherever they go. So that's a very beautiful thing. In this interior design space, what are some of the challenges that you've faced? But before you touch on challenges, what are the wins? What are the good things? And then we'll touch the challenges.
First of all, it's good to always start with good things, because not everything is bad, and we have so many bad stories in the world today. So some of the good things, to be honest, with the interior design industry right now, let me speak from a Ugandan perspective. We still have opportunity. People don't yet know that they can have a good space. They don't know that it doesn't have to be expensive to have a good space. And so for us, it gives us a clean canvas to change the world and make our mark as women. And for me, that's what excites me. I'm sort of thinking I have opportunity to change people's lives without having to pay so much truckloads of money to live in good spaces. So I think that's one of the good things. Then the second thing is we don't yet have a saturated industry, in the sense that we still have natural resources that we can leverage on, and it's just that the client hasn't yet come around to doing that. But if I found somebody who said, you know what, I want to go rustic, and rustic is use old stuff, go woodsy, and even if it's industrial, use old pipes. Let's not get rid of the GDI pipes, which we used to use a long time ago for piping. Now we use plastic. They can be used as decoration. They can be used as support in a house. So those are some of the good things. We still have natural resources. And then I still think that we still have the opportunity to even break into spaces beyond just people's homes. There's still offices. I mean, we are living in one of the best generations where we have flexibility to do whatever we want with our space. And I always love it when I have to do an office for people who are young and they're sort of like, it's a creative space. And so you just go haywire in your thinking and you just give them everything that comes to your mind, but making it cohesive and good for them. Those are still some of the good things that we have. And material is not that expensive as much as some places we know. So we still have good opportunity in that regard. But like you said, there are challenges. The challenges mostly come from miseducation or a lack of education in that regard. It's that people are sort of thinking, do I have to pay somebody to help me arrange this space? I can do it myself. And yet there are things like I've spoken about before on our page, like feng shui. You come from work. Feng shui is the energy you feel in a space. Have you ever entered a space and you feel like you're trying to relax, but it's just not letting you? It's draining you, and yet there's nobody else in the space with you, but it's because of how it's arranged. And so a lot of times people are like, I just hire somebody to plan a space for me, or to even pick paint colors for me, or even tiles. Why do I have to? That miseducation or lack of knowledge is a challenge in itself. And so even when they finally come around to let's get an interior designer, they don't think you're worth it. And so they're paying you don't need that much money. Just show me this, just do that and push it around. And yet it's intellectual property. It's like how people think influencers, content creators, you're just creating content. It's intellectual property. It is time. It is ideas that you're putting together that you as a person doesn't have. So that's one of the challenges we have. And that's why for me, educating people it's top of my agenda. And in that sense, for me it's sustainable, because I keep saying I don't have to have the clients right now. I just have to keep educating people, and people will learn. That way we have more clients in the future. So that's how I look at it. But also the other challenge we've had is, again, that thing of trying to convince people that, you know what, going natural is a good thing. It's too expensive. You're telling them you don't have to have security lights that need to be switched on at your entrance. If it gets dark, they will automatically get on. But the initial cost just makes someone flip. And you're thinking, no. Think 10 years from now, or even security measures. You don't have to have an askari there if people see that light. It's psychological, right? And then you're thinking, let me take you to maybe ABC. ABC has one of these special taps where you turn a little bit, just put it up, it will instantly give you the cold water. Turn it a little bit, it will switch to the hot water. That's instant. Not turn the tap, it runs, then you keep touching to check, is it hot? We need to move away from that. But that tap might be expensive right now, but a few months from now or years from now, you'll be grateful you have it. Yes, your bills are not as high, you're not running as much water, even like toilets. Just getting a cistern that doesn't flush liters of water. You need to be able to get a cistern that allows you a certain amount of water for if it is number one, and then a certain amount for number two. But people don't think like that. And they're just thinking, no, just put. Sometimes it's builders' fatigue. Like you have built for so long, you're just thinking, my money is sinking here. I need to just get into the house. And then people just start to drop things in the house just to get in. Not sustainable at all. I'd rather you wait, put things properly, and get in when you're done. And then even if you're not done, get in, but don't put in things just to finish. So those are some of the challenges. And then the other thing is interior design. The people we interact with are mostly men, let's just say. And half the time men are like, these are engineers, architects. So they're sort of like, women, what do you know? You're telling the gentleman, we're going to use this versus this. I don't want us to use that. And it's like, do you know how long I have done this job? Or it becomes an ego thing for them. They're not listening. They're not trying to learn. And so it always puts you in a situation where you're just the interior designer. Why should I listen to you? Which is not a good thing, because one, it discourages the women from trying to get in there and get their hands dirty. But it also explains why the president of this country is always telling us, why aren't women getting into such, jobs, architecture work and civil engineering? Guess what? It's because some of it is ego issues. Yet, I find that when I've worked with women who are contractors, architects, women, it's always easier. The flow of the design comes very easy because you explain to them, this is the rationale. They're not trying to battle you from the perspective of, do you know me? I am better than you. I have done this for a long time. That's also another challenge, which very few people talk about. But for me, I smelt it the day I got in. I had a site and the mason was carving the arc wrongly. And I said, you are doing it wrong. He's like, no, this is how we do it. And by the time you finish, he's made an error and he's trying to sort of talk you down on it. That's a challenge. It's a challenge, but I keep hoping, like all of us, we're evolving. Human beings are evolving. We have our weaknesses as women elsewhere, but it's that we have to keep learning and trying to get better. So that's the other challenge. And then I think another thing, I spoke about natural resources being available in Uganda, but one of the things that's not available is we don't have variety of the things we're looking for. You see, like how I'm talking about smart homes, smart devices, it's not very easy to come across them in Uganda. You'll find we have very good service providers. I'll give mention maybe to like Hafeli. They have some of the best handles for doors and wardrobes in the country. But to get Hafeli's orders, like people will build a full house and they need what? 15 locks, 20 something pieces of something, and you can't find them because we're Uganda and they don't think we are a viable market. Then do you know what we end up doing? We end up ordering stuff from Dubai, from the UK. Some of our clients are traveling to Turkey now because there's a specific type of thing we're looking for and we can't find it here. And yet they want it. So that's another challenge we're facing. And yet you think about opening a shop, you want to support Boo. Now taxes are more than 40% on imported stuff. You're thinking, do I want to go that route? I don't know. Yeah. So you end up not having the variety that you need, and yet people are now exposed to TV, traveling, and they're like, oh, I saw this thing in France, I saw this thing in America, and I would like to have it. And you search these streets. I sit on 5th Street, so I'm always on 6th and 7th Street, and that stuff is not there. Yes, we always find that Nairobi has some more things than we do. So some things we get from Nairobi. Egypt has been a good place also. They have quite some, they are more modernized than we are. So they have some more variety than we do. Then of course South Africa. But then when you think about the logistics, that becomes another science. Like we do design, sometimes you'll do a full 3D design and a client you'll let them walk through it virtually and they are crazy about it. Then you go down to the specifications to look for the table, to look for the things that you are envisioning, and they're nowhere to be seen. You have to go to South Africa to get them. Then it takes you 3 months to get them here, or 4. And then when they're here clearing, it's a hassle. So that's another tall order for us in the interior design industry.
One of the things that I realized in this conversation is planning is very important. And you'll see that in Uganda, the housing is not well planned. And you will find that Uganda National Roads Authority will just say, okay, you know what, we want to build a road here, so all of you shift. And then they would have to remove houses, and that is bricks and sand, and that's already wastage, draining the environment, which is something I think we should work on. As we come to a conclusion, what are your parting shots? What do you want everyone else there to know about, Kwanzi accents and any other thing for the interior designers out there?
First of all, I'm very glad that you had me and gave me the opportunity to talk. One of the things I want people to understand, Kwanzi Accents, we are here as an interior design studio. I've shared with you the type of people we are working with, and we are mostly in the consultancy, but most times clients want us to do the project management. So we end up getting into that. One of the things that we also struggle with, actually, which I should have mentioned, was the technical people we work with. A lot of times people are saying, why don't you guys try and get local carpenters to do things, or electricians? And most of the Ugandans who are doing these jobs go to vocational school, but Ugandans are not dedicated to excellence. So if your value is, my things have to be excellent, by the time you finish the project, you have spent your own money trying to correct what the worker is doing. So I think one of the things we need to try and do as Ugandans is try and be excellent. Let's stop the mediocre thing. I have people who are often complaining to me, oh, why do you go to, I have some Turkish people sometimes I work with because they have proved they can do the work with excellence. And then you find somebody who says, you guys go and pick Turkish people or maybe Syrians from 7th Street and you use them, yet our children in Uganda are going through school and doing the same things. Guess what? They have refused to be excellent. And we don't have the latitude and the money to keep correcting those mistakes, right? So for me, that's my plea to people out there to try and be excellent in whatever they are doing. And then to maybe our clients is, we need to think sustainability. It's not only for climate change, but for you as a person to be, to have an energy efficient home, to have a space that's not cluttered and so minimalistic in a sense, to try and use things that you have to think your health every time you're thinking, what paint am I using? Or what impact does it have? Even if it's the type of color, something as simple as that. You know that they will tell you, maybe like old people shouldn't sleep in bright rooms because it's not very restful, a color to put in space. But every time you tell someone, oh, me, I saw it on TV, I want it. So you have to think sustainably, and also think, I'm building a house. It has 7 bedrooms. The kids are about to leave home. How am I keeping this place? You don't want to have a home after 10 years that has molds because you're not in it. Because something people don't know, and I always tell my clients, is every time you're not going to a certain room, the walls we sit in next to in a room are sort of maintained and sustained because we breathe when we're there, so they get the warmth. The minute a room is cold and nobody's going there, it gets mosses or mold. Now, I'm always telling my clients, you don't have to build obscenely big houses, and most people don't even want to hear this. They're sort of like, we have the money, what's your problem? But every time you build a huge house and you can't reach that room, guess what? It goes cold. And then you have molds in a home and you're not using the space. Think sustainably. Who's going upstairs? If you're growing old, why are you building a double-storied home? You're not going to go up those stairs. Are you going to put a lift? Most likely not, because it's expensive. You know what I mean? So it's a whole mishmash of things, but people don't want to think like that. And yet what we need people to start thinking like is, how long am I going to be in this space? Will it make sense for me when I've grown old? Will I be able to clean it and maintain it? Sustainable thinking is important.
Thank you so much. Kwanzi Accents can be found at Design Hub, and if you are in need of someone like Brenda, please do reach out. But anyway, we would want to encourage each one of us to make sure that we're doing something to combat climate change, because it is something that is very vital, and we want each one of us to be able to support. This podcast is sponsored by Africa No Filter in conjunction with MasterCard Foundation. Thank you so much for listening in, and until next time, Ugandans, please be excellent.